Hi, Amanda. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hello. Thank you.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. I can't wait to chat about something new and different that we haven't kind of talked much about yet, and diving into that whole topic. But first, what I would love for you to do is if you could share with our listeners what you're currently doing now with your IHP certification, kind of in the health and wellness space with your clients. And then we can always back it up and talk about how you got started.
Yeah, definitely. My name is Amanda Christodoulou. My practice is HL Coaching Group, and that stands for Holistic Lifestyle. And what I do with clients is I find that my niche is really people that have been dismissed, maybe by medical doctors, or they go in and they're told, oh, your labs all look normal. I can't diagnose you with anything. But they know they don't feel right. They know that there's some sort of messages that their body is giving them, and they need some sort of additional information, second but different opinion, maybe looking at it from a different approach. So all ages, every demographic, and that's really what they mostly have in common.
Okay, yeah. And have you always worked in the health and wellness space? Is this kind of something that you went into after you started? What was kind of your journey to doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, my journey's a little interesting. So I first was in the fitness industry. I've actually been in the fitness industry since I was 16, working in gyms, but I took a little hiatus after college and did a little bit of online marketing. Realizing that that was not for me, I then decided to open up Pilates studios. And so I had those for a while, and I didn't really know about this line of work. So I was on the side while I was teaching Pilates, and all my sessions were one-on-one. That was just the structure of my studio. I felt like I was curating this education myself, reading about pesticides and different types of diets and sleep and all of these pillars of health. And I noticed after the first couple years of being in that industry that I felt like my clients were not coming to me for Pilates or movement. And there were so many times where we would do whole sessions that were more therapeutic. They didn't even mind if they laid on their back and just talked to me the whole time. And I could never pinpoint exactly what it was, but I knew that I had an more of an evolved calling than just these sessions. And I knew that my clients that I had for the longest duration were not focused on their aesthetics or their body goals. Pilates is fantastic and I love it and believe in it. But I knew that that's not what they were coming to me for. And somebody suggested that I get some education through the Czech Institute. And so that's where I started. And I was like, this HLC, holistic lifestyle coaching, I didn't even know this was a thing. And my level 1 of that first education I did, I knew everything already. But I loved it because it was like systematic. And I felt like it made so much sense. I'm like, this is everything that I say, but now I have an order and understand how they work together, and I can do an assessment. And I was like, this is what I need to be doing. Mm-hmm. When COVID started and gyms were closed, I was like, this is my chance. More education, virtual meetings where I don't have to touch the person, and everything with Pilates. And I'm going to start just really doing this. And I found a IHP, IIN as well. And I've been collecting certificates as much as I can. And now here I am, and I do this 100% now.
Yes. Oh yeah. Amazing. Others who, listeners who've heard this podcast several times know this story, but I also came from a fitness background. I was personal training at first. And I admit all the time, I was not the best personal trainer, but I had clients that came to me for 10 plus years, and they were getting something way more than just training. Right. And I think we've talked about kind of like that, no trust factor of where someone just truly, one, either loves your energy and how you're able to support them. But I was seeing some clients 2-3 times a week. I was seeing them more than my family, my friends. and
Yes.
you build this relationship, you know what's going on in their life. And yeah, sometimes clients would come in and we would start working out and they'd break down in tears. And I'd be like, oh,
Oh,
let's just go sit in the office.
yes.
Right?
Lots of tears.
Yeah, because there's so much more to like life. And it's, interesting that you said the clients that stuck around the longest were the ones that weren't actually interested in, sculpting their body. I would have brides come in and I would get them, their bodies would look amazing and then they never come back. But the ones that always stayed for 10 plus years, those were the ones that, I was doing more of like this therapeutic, emotional support along with physical stuff, but they were just craving to have somebody understand, talk about things more around lifestyle. And so I feel like it's such an important component to any part of like health, fitness, wellness in general, right? Like if our minds and our hearts aren't well, other things can't be either.
Exactly. Yeah. Very similar. Very similar. That connection, I think, with clients, and also just being that person that they want to tell these things to. They feel comfortable to break down and cry in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a testament, I think, to the person, the coach, the trainer, the whatever.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So what I would love to kind of dive into next is one of the kind of things that you feel is most important as far as connecting either to clients or to other coaches. What might that be, and how do you go about it? So not necessarily so connecting to clients, but then also maybe like networking of coaches.
Mm-hmm.
What is one thing that kind of sets you apart as far as what you value in that process?
Yes. So part of my mission that's really very close to home is I want this information that we're all getting to be really accessible. And I know that most people probably feel that way. But in sharing more and more, I put myself out there a lot, really put my neck on the line with a lot of the things that I say and do, not even promote, but just share. Mm-hmm. And I find that we are really censored. And the more I kind of push the envelope, the more I have videos taken down and lots of trolls and people reporting me, and I'm shadow banned for weeks at a time and all of this stuff. So not just accessible, but uncensored. And the ability, I want people to be able to reach me and people like me to ask these questions, because our default is the things that we've always done. And when you think about that dismissal of people, of a lot of the people that I work with, they've exhausted their resources. They've asked their questions. They've gone to the appointment and said, this is what's going on. So I don't want to make it hard to ask me a question and get a completely different answer. I want that to be really available, but I also don't want that person to have to wait for me to talk about it, or to have to comment on some video and get lost in a sea of comments and hope that I answer. Mm-hmm. I just want them to, I've been giving my phone number out on TikTok for a long time. It is a work number, but a lot of people text me, and that's what it's there for. Like, ask me your questions. If I have an answer, I'd love to give it to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the problem is when people have exhausted all of the conventional and more quote unquote accepted, socially accepted opinions and have come up short, it's usually the ones that are censored and, not readily available that end up giving them what they need. And I think all of us as practitioners, we kind of like walk this tightrope line of wanting to be able to share as much as we know, but also only sharing as much as will allow us to keep practicing. I say to people all the time, like, I would love to talk about X, Y, and Z, but I love what I do too much to put that at risk by talking about X, Y, and Z.
I know you're walking a tightrope all the time with this. Yes.
And I think also too, with other coaches, when coaches have conversations, having conversations in places where there's not censorship and you're able to kind of, use others as, bouncing things off of and sharing information in that way is a way that all coaches, kind of grow essentially. And that's one of the things that I love about IHP the most is there's this community of coaches that are able to just like, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And we're kind of constantly learning. So what do you use? What are you using for platforms to kind of achieve this? Because obviously it's probably not Instagram.
No, it is absolutely not Instagram. So two things on that. One is I'm using a platform called Discord, which was created for gamers. It's an app. It's on the you can use it on your desktop as well. So in all of my social media, I have a link in my bio that you can get to this page. You have to have the app. You just download the app and then you click the link, but you can't get into it without that invite link. So I just heard a Discord notification. So I use this because I'm the moderator, as well as another coach that works alongside with me. And so there's no censorship. You ask a question like, my son has allergies. What do you recommend? You're going to get an answer from me, coaches that work with me, and the community. Oh, my son has allergies. This is what I give. It's like a chat room practically. And it's such a warm community. I am the moderator and I have never had to moderate a thing. So that's how I connect with people. Oftentimes I'll go live on another platform and I'll say, join me there, because don't wait for live for it to be convenient for me. Just ask what you need to ask. You can ask it in a more private setting by sending me a message on there as well, where some of the other apps, they go into your requests, or it's only if you're following each other. And this is just like an open floor to connect and communicate. On there, I do a lot of giveaways and I ask a lot of questions too. I mean, I want to know people's opinion, take their temperature. Do you want to learn about Ayurveda? Do you want to talk about hormones? So it's this just open space that's been so rewarding. And then I have a separate server. That's what they're called. The rooms are called servers. And I have a separate one that's just meant for coaches. So if a coach were to want to join that, they would reach out to me or someone else that they know was on there to get the invite. So that's not publicly put up anywhere. And then I was just thinking about what you were just saying, that coming from the fitness industry, I always felt like trainers were very dogmatic. A lot of them were, not a total blanket statement, but there's so much dogma, and there's, oh, they did that certification. They don't know what they're talking about. And it's always like, you just don't know what you're talking about. But I noticed that with coaches, and maybe it's because of this more holistic approach, no one discredits anything that anyone says. The bio-individuality really shines when you're like, people are not afraid to say, I don't know what to tell this client or what to do, and help me. Have you ever seen anything like this? And they're not afraid to say, oh, I haven't tried that yet. That's a great idea. There's not this, you did a different certification, so now we just don't agree. And, it's just like, all right, well, let's try it. It's so warm and welcoming.
Yes. Yeah. I think the training industry can be so much more competitive in a way. And I think like the natural personalities maybe that go into personal training, and maybe they're, they've been competitors in the past. I was never doing figure competing or any of that. Yeah. I actually went into personal training because I knew I just wanted to work with people and make them feel better. Right. And so I think that it kind of, yes, like you said, can kind of have this space where it feels like, okay, if you did this, like you're that kind of trainer. And if you did this, you're that kind of trainer. And like, we definitely don't see eye to eye. There's some trainers that love mobility, but some that are like, no, lift heavy weights. Yes. And I think with health coaching specifically, it has like a different energetic kind of space about it, where it's less competitive. It's more kind of, you're in this like well-held container of just other, and maybe it's because it's more female focused as kind of, because I know lots of men who are incredibly warm and do this kind of stuff, and they're amazing too. But I wonder if also because it's a little bit more female focused than maybe the training industry is, there's less of that like alpha personality to like be the best, come out on top, like I'm not going to help you, that's going to hurt me type of a thing. So Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably possible. I think it's also the way that we're taught, where all of the certification programs and the information out there, we're constantly towing a line of, I'm not going to make this sound like the end all be all, because that is going to get me in trouble. Probably. It's different when we have someone's lab and we're like, this is the level. But when we're talking about these symptoms and there's so much overlap, it's like we're going to use this as an experiment. And I call myself an explorer. I'm trying to explore all the areas, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, that could be contributing to whatever this physical manifestation is that you're complaining about. Or dealing with. Maybe you're not even complaining at this point. You're suffering from something. So that's, I feel like maybe one of those big differences there is we're explorers, and we're going to just keep going until we find the X marks the spot or whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah. And I think we kind of have this determined way about us too, that, we know that there can be answers. We've seen so many people go from having, super desperate, no answers, to having, found answers that doctors told them that they never would find, or they would never get better. And kind of, we know that there's, usually a way to get to the bottom of it. Yeah. Absolutely. I love that, being an explorer.
Yeah.
And so on Discord, you have basically there's a private group, which is just the coaches. And so then the other one functions as public. So essentially anybody, now this is super interesting that you've never had to, it's public and anybody can join, and you've never had to have any, be sorry, you got to go, or no. And maybe it's because people don't know about it. So who are the people that are kind of in this group? Are they moms and just are other coaches in that one too? Are they people that are just health minded? How do they usually hear about it? Maybe through your Instagram page or?
Yeah. So I try to mention it anytime I go live on another platform. I'm on TikTok. I'm much larger on TikTok than Instagram. And I once put it up in a video on TikTok and I was shadow banned for a week. So now I only talk about it live. And I have the link all over. I just can't promote it. So the people that are in it, it's just like-minded people. It also is a really good place for people that maybe can't afford to run the big 5 labs right now or something like that, but they have questions and they know that there's information out there. And it's hard to just use Google and try to piece together tons of conflicting information. So it's a place where anybody with an interest can stop by, ask questions. You don't have to have notifications. You can just use it as you want. And for example, we are in the middle of doing a book club where everyone's reading The Rain Barrel Effect. And each week we've been talking about one of the toxic enemies. We're on 7 right now. So we gave away a book. We provided a link to the book for free where you just pay for shipping, and people are learning this in a really easily digestible way. And if the people they know this information is out there, and I think that they're using this and me and a couple other coaches that are involved as their model for health. I think it's really important that we have a model. And we used to have our model was our family doctor. Mm-hmm. And I think that is that's really shifted a little bit. And so I have my models for health, Dr. Cabral being one of them. If something's going on with me, I'm going right to his podcast if I don't know what it is. And I want to see what has he ever spoken about this and what does he say? So I'm my own model. He's my model. There's a couple other people that I follow that I really value their opinion. And I don't feel like I have to do tons of research if I know that I already trust them. And that's already been established. So I think that people are using me in there as that model where they know I've done the research. I've curated my selection of things that I recommend. They know I'm going to answer questions to the best of my ability and as quickly as possible. And they're using it as, instead of booking a full session or going to see their doctor for 15 minutes or whatever it is, they're like, let me just start here. It's a really good starting point.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And when we feel like we're in kind of the company of somebody else that's like-minded, we automatically kind of trust a little bit more, and you're able to, it's no different than like, oh, like you're yelling at a toddler or you're yelling at a kid and they can't really like hear what you're saying discipline wise because they're just scared because you're yelling, right? If you are in a place where you know everybody's like-minded, you're able to learn and absorb the information better and then be your own best advocate. Maybe you do go back to your doctor, but you have information now to do that. And you're kind of armed in a different way with, being kind of your own best advocate in a way.
Yeah. I think that the most common comment and reaction to things that I say anywhere, but especially in there, is, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
It's just a different perspective.
Exactly. And we've like lost such a sight of what it means to have different perspective. I think in the climate socially that we're politically that we're in now, like it's one way or the highway. If you are, if you have A, B, and C, but you also believe D, it's like, well, then you can't stand over here. There's no flexibility in what your perspective or your kind of belief system can be. You're either like one or the other, and people discredit you either way. And it's just so polarizing. Yes. Whereas you can kind of, if you're in a group like this, you can believe in a bunch of different things and find perspective in just about anything. And it allows you to think freely. And maybe somebody who doesn't have as many certifications of you says something that you're like, oh, actually, that might be true. Interesting. So we even learn, I say all the time, like I learn from my clients when they ask an interesting question that I've never even thought of.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think I see a movement of people in general also realizing that they have to be a little bit more introspective about things that are going on. I think people are realizing that, but maybe just don't know how. And I talk about this study that I learned about in a prenatal fitness course, actually, where they taught me that they monitored all these women in labor in a hospital setting that were hooked up to all of the things that they hook you up to when you first go into labor. And they did a study where they had a doctor enter the room, and the monitors were right next to the woman. And 95% of the women, when asked, how do you feel, looked at the monitor before answering. And knowing that is, I'm often telling people, let's not even do labs right away. Let's not even show me what you sent, but how are you feeling? Like, how did you react to what you ate? How is your energy, your sex drive? Are you losing hair? Like, you don't need metrics and monitors to tell you how you feel. And sometimes it's back to the basis where, how did you sleep? And we want to know what our Apple Watch says, how we slept. And it's like, no, but are you tired? Are you rested? And so there's even just a lot of that with clients now. And I think that they're really realizing that, where it's like, I don't, whatever metrics, whatever they say, we have these health report cards that I believe, but how do you feel? Really, how do you actually feel?
Yes. And how do you feel for so many people can be just an overwhelming question in and of itself. Forget having a ton of labs that tell you how maybe they might feel, right? But just actually asking someone to pause and think for a minute about how they feel without immediately grasping at something outside of them, usually a technology. That study is so interesting. Yeah, how they like looked at the monitor.
Right?
Yeah. Because it's, I think as a society, we've been programmed to get everything outside of ourselves. Everything that we need, we kind of reach to out here, and nobody's kind of like looking in, reaching in, kind of, and we're all just so busy and so bogged down by distraction that people are just numb, in my opinion. And 100%. Asking them to feel is a task in and of itself.
I know. I met with a 40-year-old woman yesterday. She's a weight loss client. And I asked her, how does physical hunger show up in your body? And she was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, what does it feel like? Like, where do you feel it? And what does it feel like? And she's like, I have no idea. And I'm like, do you know how many times in your 40 years you've been hungry and you don't even know what it feels like?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so wild because when are we ever asked that question? And so now I'm like, let's just have a little mindfulness about that. Just curiosity, not judgment. Just, is it in your head? Is it in your belly? Is it in your chest? Do you feel lightheaded? Where does hunger show up? Mm-hmm. It's not a crazy question, but I bet you there's listeners now thinking like, where does hunger show up?
Well, and like, if I was the client, I'd be like, well, define hunger, right? Because
right?
I'm just like a little deeper, right? But I mean, a lot of people even would like take hunger and be like, well, obviously if I'm hungry, it shows up in my stomach. Well, actually, obviously, maybe not.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
And is it a grumble or a growl or pain or a gnawing or butterflies? So if you don't even know something that happens 3-5 times a day, what it feels like, how do we really know what anything feels like?
Right. When it comes to something so simple as like hunger and eating, which is just like a daily thing.
Exactly.
But I feel some of us don't even allow ourselves to actually get hungry, which is, might be. Yep. I say to my kids all the time, like, you're not hungry, you're bored. Let's talk about why you're bored.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious what you think one of the biggest, so we've kind of talked about like regular, like the lay person that, people that are kind of coming in from the public and they're joining the group. What do you think is one of the biggest benefits to coaches for kind of having a place like that to go and just ask questions? Because even on Facebook, we have like the IHP groups, but even on Facebook, you have to, walk that line of not, looking like you're diagnosing or not looking like you're talking about blood work or being a doctor. What is one of the biggest benefits that you notice or like that you get feedback from other coaches in that kind of private group?
Yeah, well, I think two parts. One is even Dr. Cabral, I think, still has questions. So it's a way I could look in my books. I can look on Facebook. I can ask this other group. It's just all these different opinions. So it's a way to get more information. And usually if I ask a question in there, the answers that I get are things that I had not thought about. Like it's not like, oh, I already knew that. I already tried that. So I think that it's that sense of community where we're just helping each other out, and everybody needs a health coach, in my opinion. I think there should be one in every single family, but so there's no shortage of clients or business. There's no competitiveness. I'm not going to help you because you're going to be a better coach than me. So it's really a really welcoming environment. And then I also think that another thing that's amazing is as coaches, there's an idea for some population, I think of probably a large population that think that we are perfect. Like we've figured it all out. And so we don't have any more questions about ourselves and we're just great. But in reality, this is a really safe space to say like, hey, I have a rash. Mm-hmm. And I really don't know where it's coming from. And let's talk about rashes. And it's hard as a coach to say you live a life of balance and you gain a few pounds when you go on a trip or whatever, have dairy or, there's so much, I think, of this like reverse judgment where it's like, oh, she's perfect. She doesn't touch that. It's the weirdest thing. I'm asked not asked, it's assumed that I'm a vegetarian always. I'm so not a vegetarian and I have nothing against them. But it's so weird how something about me just screams that I don't eat meat. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I think that coaches always deal with things like that, where they think I just live in the gym and cook everything and I don't eat out and I never have a drink. And I'm just this rigid kind of individual when I'm actually not at all. And I don't want my clients to be either. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a safe space to say like, hey, I have something going on. and client or family member or whatever. And like, I just don't know what I want to do, or I just want to talk about it, or I want to share this amazing thing I just found that I had never seen before. Supplements, homeopathics, air filters, whatever. It's a space. Like, if you guys don't know about this, now you know.
Yes. Yeah. I think the point of it almost working in reversal. So not necessarily the coaches that, come in getting their questions answered, but having like maybe even the more senior, more, knowledgeable, also having a place to be vulnerable and ask their questions, because yes, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I have people say to me all the time, like, you're going to eat those chips. I'm like, yes, actually I eat chips all the time. I love chips and I will always love chips and the oil. And I try to buy ones with avocado oil, but yes, I'm eating the chips, and you should have what you like too. And so people have this like mindset that if you're a health coach, you're living this like perfect little like precious healthy life, and there's a lot of things that I do not compromise on and that are my kind of non-negotiables, but I also live my life and I let my kids live. That one thing I think as a mom, which is super hard, is I'll be at like a birthday party and the mom will say to me, just so you know, that has gluten in it. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. Like we don't overconsume this at our house, so that when they come to a birthday party, they're not already, full little rain barrels. And so it's fine for them to have a cupcake because they're kids and like they're going to be kids. And so I think that it's like and it always makes me feel like super awkward, or they'll ask like the kids, does mom let you have this? And then, it's kind of like, now it's put on the kids, and my kids are like, yeah, mom lets me have this. So I think it's a really good, idea to have a place where coaches can kind of be themselves, let their guard down, get support from other coaches who are also kind of busy. Yes, having a lot of standards and non-negotiables for their health and their family's health, but not being these perfect little robots, because let's face it, like that's not healthy either. I mean, being so rigid in anything is going to cause some sort of stress in the body. And needing to find a balance is what it's all about. And so being able to kind of find other people who are experiencing maybe the same, judgy is the word that comes to mind, but like, judgy things from other people, it's, I think, super refreshing to go, yeah, I've experienced that too. And this is how I, work around it or whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, there's business too. So you could be the most knowledgeable health coach in the world, but maybe you need a little help on how to get started on social media. We've talked about that in that group as well. And what do people do? And everyone is just so open with their information. They're like, I hired this person, I started here, and we follow each other. And so it's real just support. Like we really need to, I think, support each other and share these things. There's a lot of information and we can't all have it all. And it wouldn't even make sense to. Like, I don't want to know every single thing there is to know, because some people dedicate, if there's men coming to me, they want to boost testosterone, and I actually am into that. But let's say if I wasn't, I could be like, is somebody else a better fit for this client, this potential client than I am? Because we don't all have time to work one-on-one with every single person. There's only so many hours in a day. And so, hey, yeah, I know somebody that literally dedicates themselves to testosterone or fertility or whatever it is. And let's share, or let me just get you one session with them or something along those lines. I think it's just really supportive.
Yes. Yeah. And it all comes back to like the energetics too, because then like somebody else, thinks of you when they, there's a topic that and they're like, oh, let me set you up with Amanda. And not that you're doing it for that to happen. Like that's not the conscious, but that's just the way it ends up kind of working. And in the sense of, there's just not that, like, I got to keep all the clients to myself, that like scarcity. I always say, like, when you come at something from that scarcity or fear mindset, you're going to have way less than when you come at it with just like inclusive love, abundance, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I really learned that in the fitness industry too. There's the trainers that believe in abundance and want to share, and if this person's doing 3 sessions with me, they're probably down to do a 4th with you as a compliment, or they also need acupuncture, massage, chiropractor, whatever it is. I've always been someone that believes in that. It will come back to me. Even if I lose them for one day and they are being helped by you, that's going to come back to me in some way. And I believe that with coaches too. I also feel like we need to be an army, even with different educations, but we can't all be silenced, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we just keep empowering each other and sharing this information, it's going to get out.
Yes. Yeah. And always doing right by the client. I mean, I've had plenty of clients from like, I am not the best fit for you. And this trainer actually could get you the results you're looking for. But because I don't love heavy lifting and doing this, like I actually am more into like why most people, like the sitting in the office and crying. So like people that like really want those hardcore aesthetic results. And knowing what your strengths are, I think is it's a sign of confidence, and knowing these are my strengths, these aren't my strengths. And if I know somebody else who's good at this and can help that client better, then kind of passing it off. And then what's meant for you, the kind of clientele that you love working with and that helps you thrive and them thrive comes to you.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
All right. So if you wouldn't mind sharing kind of where all of this shows up. So whether, what your TikTok handle and Instagram, and if you can say like the Discord stuff on here, great. If not, we can always, point people to your lives and TikTok or whatnot.
Yes. Okay. So my TikTok is the.holistic.mama. My Instagram is @aholisticcoach. On both of those profiles, there's a link to the Discord. The funky thing is, for whatever reason, the Discord invite changes once a week. So I have to keep updating that. So in the event that you can't get in, it probably needs to be updated. And then you could just send me a message, an email, whatever, a text. Everything's on there. And I post the most on TikTok, and just kind of throw my hands up, and I'm like, it's either going to do well or not. And I'm going to try not to fight that algorithm because it's just insane. And if you were a coach that wanted to be invited to that specific Discord, you could just send me a message on Discord. So you would find it the same way and send me a message as, I'm a coach and I'd like to be invited, but that's not publicly posted anywhere. And messaging and emailing and texting and all that is easy from either one of those profiles. Just TikTok messages, they don't let you message people unless you're friends.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
But I'm pretty easy to reach.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being a guest on the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast. This was so fun. And I think the conversation that we had will resonate with a lot of our listeners. And I think it's kind of an important message to get out there. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, Amanda, we'll talk soon.
Okay. Sounds good.